Hello everyone and welcome to this Excel series. My name's James and hopefully I'll be teaching you everything that you need and want to know about Microsoft Excel. For this series I'll be using Microsoft Excel 2013. If you do have a different version of Excel, fundamentally it will be the same. You may have some different formulas and the layout may be slightly different. So let's start with the basics. I'll assume that you have a somewhat basic knowledge of what Microsoft Excel is and how you can use it, but we'll be starting from that point there. So in front of you, there I have a table that I've made, and as you can see, the table starts in cell B2, column B, row 2, and goes down to column F, row 10. This table shows the sales for each day of the week, for weeks 1 to weeks 4. We can imagine this is any real sort of business, and it would probably be very handy to know what the total sales figure is for the total week. In Excel, we can add all these numbers together. There are multiple different ways of doing this. I'll show you a bad way to start, and then we'll start working on the better ways as we go. So whenever we're starting a formula in Excel, we always have to start with the equals sign. So if I want the total for week 1, I could write in 59.52 plus 16.47 plus 74.96 plus 17.5 plus 21.1 plus 71.86 plus 85.06. Whew, finally got there. If I press return, what you'll notice is the total sales figure for the week is now 346.47. Fantastic. As you'll notice, I had to type all the numbers manually out, and I could easily have an error in my total. Also, because I've typed the numbers manually out, it's much more difficult to modify any of the figures. If I'm looking back at week 1 and say, actually, Thursday's sales weren't 17.5, they were 71.5. I've just changed the value, but my total, because I've hard-coded the 17.5 in there, I would have to manually go back into the formula and update that to 71.5. Press return. This is where Excel can really save some time and get some shortcuts in that instead of actually typing the numbers in there, we can actually just refer to the cells with the values in them. So I've put in the equals sign to start off a formula, and my first value is in C3, column C, row 3, so I'm going to select C3 and then plus C4, and I'm just going to select all the individual values and press return. As we can see, we now have the total of 400.47. So this works much better than manually typing out all the different values, because if I'm to change any of these values right now, it will automatically update the total. You'll notice that down the bottom where I've written in this formula, I've selected the cell, it's become green and it has a little box down the bottom right. When I hover over the box, my cursor's turned to a little plus sign. If I click and drag on that, it's dragged the formula across. So anytime I've referred to C3, C4, C5, because I've dragged that across now, I've set it up, it's actually moving what it's referring to across. Very handy, and provided that we've set the formula up correctly the first time, we save a lot of time in actually typing the formula back out. As you saw, I did not have to type the formula back out again, literally just dragged it across. We could have also done Control C, held Shift and selected the range and pasted. Would have been the same outcome. So we're now going to look at relative references and absolute references. So below this main table, in cells B12 to F16, we're going to be covering relative references and absolute references. Very important, a fundamental for Excel, and we'll be covering these off and referring back to them in the later sessions. So what is a relative reference? So in cell C13, I'm going to put in equals C12. I'll press return. So in cell C13, I now have equals C12, and this is what is known as a relative reference. So when I drag the formula across, the formula is going to update to D12, E12, F12. Because I've referred to the value in that column, it's going to update the column every time. So it's going to stay relative to the cell that I've dragged across. And likewise, if I drag the cell down, it's gone C12, C13, C14. So it's always staying relative to that cell. If we don't want this to be relative, as in we want the value to be absolute, we have to insert dollar signs in the formula. We can do that just by Shift 4, Shift 4. So in front of the C and in front of the 12, and press return. And I'll drag this across to the right to show you. So now in C13 it's $C, $12. And in D13 it's also $C, $12. And same with E and same with F. If I was to drag this down, again, all the different cells are referenced to C12. This is what's known as an absolute reference. So if we want to make this partially absolute, because effectively the first dollar sign is locking in the C column, and the second dollar sign is locking in row 12. So if I wanted to just lock in the C column, I can just remove the second dollar sign. So there's only a dollar sign on the C and not on the number 12. So if I press return, I can drag this to the right. As you'll see, because I'm dragging it across, the column is staying relative. No, the column is not staying relative, the column's absolute, but the row is relative because we're not dragging it down. If I drag this value down now, so C14 now refers to C13 and C15 refers to C14. So in our example now, we're going to do a worked example here. We're going to look at the percentage change in the sales. So up the top from C12 over to F12, we have the total sales figures. And we're going to look at what the total sales figures would be if there was a 10% increase, or 20%, 30%, or a 40%. I know it says 110%, but badly written by me. So what we're going to do is say equals, and we're going to click on C12. And the easiest way to actually put dollar signs into the C12 is to use the F4 key on the keyboard. Just above the number 4, you have F1, F2, F3, F4. Use the F4 key. And that's put in the dollar signs for us. But what we want to lock in is we want to lock in row number 12. So when we drag this down, it's always referring to row number 12 because that's where the sales figures are going to be. So if I press F4 again, it's made the first dollar sign disappear and we've got row number 12. Fantastic. Now we're going to do a multiply sign. And now we're going to click on B13. And again, we're going to make B13 somewhat absolute, but we want now to be make the column B absolute. So when we drag this to the right, it's always going to refer to column B, which is where we've got the percentages. But when we drag it down, we want it to update to the new percentage figure. So if I press F4 again, press it another time, $B, so that's locked in column B, and then 13 is relative. So if I press return, so now we have the figure for week 1 at a 10% increase. I can drag this across to the right, so this is the 10% increase for each week. If I drag this down now, it'll show me what the differences are on a 10%, 20%, 30%, or even a 40% increase for the totals for each week. So that's basics of Excel. So thank you for tuning into this series. I look forward to seeing you again in the next session. If you've got any questions, comments, or feedback, please leave them down below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in the next session. Thank you.